Before arriving in Northern California in 1981, I spent my entire life in the Pacific Northwest. I was born in Spokane, Washington, to parents who, because they couldn't conceive a child in the normal fashion, they adopted my brother. Now, of course, as often the case, once you relax and don't worry about it, ta-da, it happens. So, along I came when my brother was 4 years old. It was, 6 hours or so after Halloween, and he remembers being 4 years old, handing out candy to other children, which I don't think he was allowed to do until then. So he remembers that quite a bit. He used to call me on my birthday, recount that evening, how wonderful it was for him. And of course, along came a baby brother, and the rest, as they say, is history. My earliest memories are living in Moscow, Idaho, when I was around 5. After that, we moved to Butte, Montana, which is a real rough and tumble mining town. And then we moved from place to place after that. When I say place to place, my father, being a lifelong Seventh-day Adventist minister, back then it was kind of an itinerant lifestyle where you lived 3 to 4 years in one place and then they'd move you to another district, which might have one church or two churches or three churches, but that's the way it worked. Now today, people who are in the Seventh-day Adventist Church as ministers, they can stay one place for quite a while and sometimes retire there. But for some reason back then it was very different. My father wasn't just a minister. He was a carpenter, he was a cook, he was a nature advocate and an expert in bushes and trees and birds and you can't imagine. And he could cook anything, by the way. He was also had a wood shop, which he loved working into and could do anything in that regard. He was a gardener. He loved flower gardens and vegetable gardens and he could sing and he could play an instrument, and I don't know what to tell you, but pretty rare bird there. Oh, by the way, he loved whitewater rafting as well. What can I tell you? If my father lived in a district that had 3 churches, he'd go to a different church every other week. When you think about it, getting up early in the morning before dawn in a Montana winter and driving icy roads to church is quite the thing. When you're a kid like me in the back seat early in the morning going 120 miles, not fun. I'm not a Seventh-day Adventist anymore. And although I don't want to go into my own personal spiritual beliefs on this channel, it's something I'll be talking about from time to time as far as the traditions, because it's how I grew up and how it shaped who I am, how it may have been good for me, maybe not so good for me. I don't want to proactively talk bad about the Seventh-day Adventist Church, but I'm going to be honest and objective about what it was like for me and what it was like for me later in life and how I come to be where I am now. Seventh-day Adventist High School was in a place called an academy, and it was a high school, and you got a good education, nothing wrong with it. Like family, in so much as you went to class together, you had all your meals together, you went to chapels together, you went to sporting events together, you went to walks together, carefully managed walks. If you happened to live in the same town as a high school, then you're what's called a village student, in that you lived at home like you normally would, and you go to high school or whatever during the day and then go home at night. So that was fairly typical. So they were interesting because you had a dean of boys and a dean of girls, and then you had someone who was like the dean of the whole school, and very, very kind of like college, but you were a lot younger. In my case, I was always boarding school. Once I left home to go to high school and then to college, I wasn't home again. When I say I wasn't home again, I was home during 6 weeks leave or maybe summer vacation or holidays or whatever. So it's not like I didn't live at home again. I just didn't live at home on a permanent 24/7 basis like most people do, even through high school. But high school reunions, because of that, are always different because it's like family. I mean, really like family. People are eager to see each other, all the hugs and the how are yous and what's going on with your life in a way that's much more familial and close than a regular high school. Then, of course, college age, you went out to college like people do nowadays. And, of course, that was normally out of town. And you'd have an apartment or a dormitory or whatever and, cafeteria or whatever. So it was not unlike it is these days, only they were different, but kind of the same. The nomadic lifestyle pre-high school, which was about moving around. And I remember when I don't know what year it was in grade school, maybe fourth or fifth grade, I had an art teacher, which I loved. She was the best teacher ever. I had her for maybe 2 years and then we moved and she was gone, just like that. So that was the main disadvantage, which was usually you laid down roots in a way that when you moved so often, you really didn't have the chance to do. In that regard, if you grew up in a military home, maybe that sounds familiar to you because you moved around from base to base or wherever, and you didn't really have a chance to set down roots that way either. So um, that would be an interesting discussion to have. Um, Advantages and disadvantages from a psychological point of view, but certainly it's not in a vacuum, that's for sure. There was, of course, the Norman Rockwell aspects of Montana life. Early in the morning in the dead of winter, when the wind wasn't blowing and the snowflakes were floating to the ground, the moonlight sparkling off the flakes, sparkling off the snow, sparkling off the snow in the branches. I mean, just amazing. In one little small town, he had a wood shop, which was great, by the way, and he had a wood stove in there. We had a big tabby cat named Tiger, who, of course, used to bring all kinds of little gifts home he caught. But he was an outdoor cat. So in the dead of winter, when it was 20 or 30 below zero, my dad would build a fire in the wood stove in the shop, and it would just burn all night long. And Tiger could come in the evening and curl up in front of the stove and stay cozy warm. Other stories about my dad and my mom going forward. But anyway, it was something. So we'll talk more about everything later on. Until then, it's been fun, and who knows what we'll come up with next week. Talk to you later.